On the program today, my interview with romance author Meredith Wild. She is a New York Times bestseller, and these are just a few of her books. We're going to talk about her new series coming up. Hey, Meredith, welcome in.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me.
So good having you. It's been a while since we chatted. What's been going on with you? You've been a little busy, I see.
A little bit busy, yeah.
You know what? Every time a box arrives at my house from Meredith Wild, my cool dad cred goes up like you would not believe.
It's the best mail, book mail.
I think the last time we interviewed my daughter Sierra, she's like 21 now. It's just a rabid, Meredith Wild fan, and she's like, "You talk to her?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, she's like, "Oh wow, Dad, that's so cool. Can I get books?" And so every time you send me a book, man, I'm just the coolest dad, at least for that little amount of time there. So, hey, before we get started, and we do have an awful lot to talk about, give the audience a really quick bio on you.
Sure. Well, I'm Meredith Wild. I'm a #1 New York Times bestselling author. I write steamy romance. I've written 8 novels. I have 4 more coming out this fall that I've co-written in the Misadventures series. And I also own Waterhouse Press, which is a small romance imprint. We have 9 authors, 10 including myself. And I have a very busy schedule.
Yeah, I made a note of that because I do want to talk about that. So you've actually gotten to the point now where you're not only writing your own books, but you've started your own press with other authors. I think that's very cool, but it does present a whole nother ball of challenges, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. If you remember from the last time we talked, I actually had transitioned out of my tech company that I had run for 10 years. And I found writing. I loved writing. It's a new passion, new chapter in my life. And now I seem to be right back in the entrepreneurial chair. And I have a penchant for complicating my life.
It's hard to get that bug out of your system. I'm an old entrepreneur. I'm the same way. I'm like, I'm just going to go write for a while. And then a squirrel will run by with a business idea on its back. And so I have to go chase that. But you have been super busy. Let's talk really quick. For those that didn't catch the first interview, God, it's been a couple of years now. Your background, talk a little bit about your tech background and as an entrepreneur.
Sure. Well, I graduated with a degree in English, actually. So it kind of makes sense that I circled back to writing. But I came out of college and was sort of looking for a job, as you do out of college. And I ended up starting a web design company, just a small little boutique operation, which expanded into a larger software development company later on and grew beyond what I had ever imagined it would be. But with any, business, especially the tech industry and anything service related, it's a lot to keep up with. It never stops. You're taking work home with you. And I really had kind of burned out from it. And I went to writing sort of as an emotional escape. And because my entrepreneurial brain just won't quit, I ended up kind of creating a business around the books. And of course, I wanted the books to do well and sell well. So, one thing led to another. And the first book I wrote was Hardwired, which ended up being the first of a 5-book romantic suspense series. And the 4th book in that series hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. And
I'm holding up books as we speak. So, so you really kind of integrated the entrepreneurial stuff though into the books, because the heroine of the book, she was a tech entrepreneur, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, I drew a lot from my experiences in the tech world, and I had been reading a lot of romance at that time too, just kind of like, just as a mental escape. And that was one of the things that inspired me, was to write a heroine who, had a little bit more power than you sometimes typically see in a romance. I wanted there to be some solid power play between her and the hero. It was, I definitely pulled a lot of inspiration from the people in my life, the businesses that I had come in contact with. It was good fun. I miss writing that series, actually.
Is there a plan to go back and revisit?
Not at this time. I have no shortage of book ideas, so it's I'm interested in moving forward, not backwards.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Sierra, my daughter, will hate to hear that because that's like one of her favorite series. Dad, ask her, is she going to do more of those? So, so you came from a tech background. You were an entrepreneur, but you also had an English degree. So you were a writer. Were you a big reader of romance?
Not especially. I mean, when I was, younger, maybe, young teen, I remember picking up bodice rippers from the grocery store, and I peeled through some of those. But with college and then starting my own business, I also have 3 children, and just between everything that was happening in my life, I really didn't do much reading after college, and certainly not like fiction leisure reading.
Sure.
I actually I got into it again with Twilight. Everybody was really into Twilight. I was like, I got to see what this is about. And it was a super entertaining read. And it was one of the things that just like caught me back into it. Like, okay, this is a great escape.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time I did start, picking up more romance, but I wouldn't say I was like a really, religious romance reader.
How many people do you think read Twilight and went, I can write that?
Probably a lot.
Probably a lot, yeah. Although very few really could to some degree. But the same way was with 50 Shades. When 50 Shades came out, did you read it and go, "That's easy, I can do that"?
Yeah, a colleague turned me onto it, and
no pun intended.
Yeah, and, yeah. I mean, it was an entertaining read, but there were definitely aspects of it that made me want to write a different kind of story. And
sure.
I mean, it's definitely started a movement, and erotic romance is absolutely a mainstream genre now. It's changed the face of publishing in a lot of ways.
Does that surprise you at all that I'm not a big reader of erotica or romance since Penthouse went out of business, but the fact that that book did have such a huge impact, and now the stuff that was in that book, which was really steamy for the time, is kind of mild nowadays compared to a lot of the things that you see on the big list, right?
Yeah, well, I think with that series, it was a combination of the erotic content, but also a lot of the taboo themes.
Mm-hmm.
In it. It was just so sensational at the time. But I mean, BDSM subgenres, erotica in general, is not new. It's been around for a really long time. It's just now, you're able to get on the bus with it and feel okay. Like
you don't have to put it in a brown paper wrapper and walk around with it. And well, that's really, really funny. I was the other day, what was the movie? I think it was Midnight Cowboy, which was a movie that came out in the 70s, was on like Turner Classic TV. And when that movie came out, it was rated X. And I think it didn't show anything other than maybe some boobage. But for the time, that was really advanced. It won the Academy Award for Best Oscar. But at the time, it was rated X. And now they're showing it on Turner Classics uncut. So,
well, I mean, look at what is being shown on like Showtime and HBO now. Like
I know.
Game of Thrones, True Blood. I mean, I remember the first time I told my mom, like, oh, there's this fun new series, here, check it out. And we saw an episode. She was like, what?
You never forget the first time you see a naked couple on TV with your mom.
Yeah. It's changed a little. It's okay now. It's like what's on TV. So
well, it's really funny. I keep talking about my daughter. If she's watching like True Blood and my wife comes in the room, she turns it off. Because it's just so weird with her mom in the room. So, well, you started writing the romances, and the romances that you do write, they do have a considerable amount of steam to them. Let's talk about the first book. Was that Hardwired?
Hardwired, yes.
Talk about how that book came to be and how it came to be printed. Did you get an agent and go traditionally with that book?
No, I started writing. I actually had kind of a false start on a story that didn't end up being published. I found an editor right away, right after I started writing. Helen Hart, who we now publish, she's a #1 New York Times bestselling author. And she has been integral in helping me hone my craft over the years. But I reached out to her very early on, and we kind of had like a false start on this project. I realized after I worked with her a little bit, I didn't really like the story that much. So I put it down. I took a break for a couple months, and then I got the idea for Hardwired. And pretty much right away, I knew that I was going to self-publish. I was familiar with the path that you would take, with an agent and trying to, get the attention of a publisher. But because I had the entrepreneurial background, I felt comfortable with marketing. I felt comfortable with branding, graphic design, all that stuff. So I was eager to give it a go myself. And then what happened for me, which has happened to a lot of people in this industry, is, you do so well on your own that eventually you do catch the attention of a publisher. Mm-hmm. So I did end up selling the rights to the Hacker series to Hachette under their Forever Romance imprint. And so I guess you could consider me a hybrid author now, because I still self-publish my books under Waterhouse, my own imprint, but I also have a traditional deal with the Hacker series.
Let's talk a little bit about that initial process when you decided that you're going to self-publish this book. And did you go the Amazon route or CreateSpace?
Yeah, I had it up on all the major ebook platforms: Kobo, Google Play, iBooks, Amazon, Nook.
And how did it catch fire? How did the readership start to build?
Well, it definitely started to build once I had 3 books in the series. So, people love to binge read. They love series. Some people hate series, but a lot of people really love series. They love getting invested over multiple books. And the great thing with self-publishing is that you can produce and publish so quickly. You don't have like 6 months, a year between releases. So you can really feed that, growing hunger for, the next installment of the story.
Yeah. So I hear that a lot from authors. Every now and then you'll get an author here that they'll have one book and it'll just go like Andy Weir with The Martian. When I'm talking to Andy, I'm like, how the hell did you do that? And he's like, I don't know. It really was literally, the right person saw his blog and it kind of took off from there. But I hear from a lot of authors who have reached the level where you are, and it's all about having multiple books, having a backlist. Like Hugh Howey, for example, I think he wrote 7 or 8 books before someone finally caught that one, and then the backlist started to sell. So when the 3rd book came out, that's really when things started moving for you. You caught an audience, and then just started building from there.
Somewhat, yeah. That was certainly part of it, and another part of it was that it was kind of early in the early days of the romance self-publishing really taking hold. And it wasn't quite as competitive. I think I was, I kind of missed that very, very early sweet spot where there were very few authors out there and they had great exposure, which, has grown their brands considerably over the years. But I was one of the first authors to really market considerably on social media.
And how did you do that? Via Facebook, YouTube? What was your strategy there?
Yeah, Facebook, Google, Twitter. I mean, there are a lot of ad platforms. And I mean, the nice thing about those now is that you can target your demographic. It's not like, putting your face on a billboard and hoping that, somebody goes and buys something. It's really hard to measure on that, where, online you can see what people are clicking on, what's interesting to them, and find more of those kinds of people to show your book to.
So you were being proactive. You were actually running ads to drive traffic to the books.
Yeah, and at the time that I was doing that, there wasn't a lot of competition for that ad space because not a lot of people were doing that. Of course, now a lot of people do that, so it drives the prices up on everything. But it's good because I think it really pushed a lot of authors to, they were grumpy that the sales weren't coming as easily. You had to invest more, but I mean, at the end of the day, this is a business, and you need to treat your author career like a business, and part of that is investing and and seeing what works so that you can stand apart and get people's attention.
Yeah, I talk to so many authors though who have such a hard time with that business aspect. Right. I did a blog post for Drafted Digital recently on that very topic. Writing is a business, and if you don't approach it as such, it's basically going to be a hobby. You're not going to make any money. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, you're an entrepreneur, and you know that it has to be approached as a business. The book. Do you look at your books as the product that you are creating that is then marketed and distributed? All these authors, my book is my baby. Well, good luck selling your baby. You really have to take it seriously, don't you?
Right. Well, I say, it's wonderful to write the book of your heart, and who I am when I write a book is different, certainly than, when I put on my business hat and I decide to go sell that book. But, I do have my market in mind. I know my readers exceptionally well now. I know what they like, what they're interested in, and I want them to be happy with the story at the end of the day. I want to be happy with it. I want it to be true to me and my voice, my creative habit. But I know that I serve the readers. They're the ones that keep the lights on, and I want them to be happy. So, it's a balance between, being an artist and being true to that, but also knowing your market. And if you want to continue, getting your books out there and finding readers who are going to enjoy your kinds of stories, you have to know that group of people.
Yeah. Is it easier now writing because you do know that group of people? You do know your market so well?
Yeah, I think that I think about that a lot. I think about how I've evolved as a writer, craft-wise, style-wise. And I think, honestly, I'm pretty consistent with how I started, which is kind of surprising. Like, you hear a lot of people who say, oh, my first draft was awful. I cringe when I look at it. And, well, I would read Hardwired and I would probably see things that, showed my inexperience at the time. I think my voice was pretty consistent, with where I am now, and certain themes are still important to me that were then. So, yeah, I don't know. I think maybe I had some good intuition at the beginning.
Did you do a lot of market research before you started writing? Did you go look at what was selling out there? And I know there wasn't as much there now as the gut that there is, now. Back then, though, there wasn't that much. But did you look at what was on the market and what you would be competing against?
Somewhat. I think that what I was mostly familiar with was what, was mainstream. I hadn't really tapped into that indie world yet. That came later, once I kind of got a foothold on the social media thing, and I started realizing there's this whole community out there. But I think what influenced me the most was just what I read, because I would go through books and I'd be like, okay, yeah, that was good, or that one was okay, or maybe if I wrote that story I would have done that differently. So I think that was more what fueled my style, was just what I wanted to see as a reader.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, because a lot of the people that I talk to, they approach it like we did a business, Meredith. They would go find a hungry market and then find something to sell to that hungry market.
Right.
And if you do that, I think that can work really well. But if you're not writing something that you're comfortable with or you're familiar with, it can really kind of blow up, right?
Right. You have to have that balance. I already knew that erotic romance was doing well, and that there was a demand for that. But story-wise, I wasn't going to go look for like the hot new trend. I was just going to write, what felt right to me.
Yeah.
That genre.
After the Hacker series, what came next? Because you have 3 series now?
The Misadventures will be my 3rd series, yes. So after I finished the Hacker series, I jumped back to the Bridge series, which is a slightly different structure. They're 3 standalone novels that have, interrelated characters. So it's 3 siblings, and it tells their stories. And
the Hacker series was a continuation. It was an actual, right. They all kind of tied together.
Right. All 5 books were about Blake and Erica, and there was a suspense theme that, carried through all of them. You didn't really get the conclusion until the 5th book.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Misadventures series. That's the 3rd series, right? The one that's out now. And you co-authored some of those books?
Right. So it's kind of an interesting story how it came to be. I was finishing one of the Bridge series books, and I was talking with a really good friend of mine, Mia Michelle. She's an author as well. And I was like, why don't we just write something fun? Because, writing sounds really romantic, but it can be hard work, and you put a lot of pressure on yourself. And
it can also be a very lonely business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes you get stuck and you're just like, digging a hole here, you feel like sometimes. So I was like, why don't we just write something fun? And so I had this little short story idea. We got going on it, and we just bounced back and forth with chapters, and then they were hilarious and they were filthy and it was like no holds barred. We had so much fun with it, and it ended up being like a full-length novel. And then with the end, we were like, well, what are we going to do with this? So I said, well, we'll publish it. And I was like, you know what? This was so much fun. And I remember finishing the book, and my husband said, I think this is the first time you haven't cried in the process of writing the book. And I was like, that's true. I had so much fun with it. I was like, you know, this is kind of a cool idea, this Misadventures idea. Like, what if we got other authors to write these sort of short, fun, fast-paced, quick blush, I call it, novels. Mm-hmm. And thus began, you know, the Misadventures idea. And we ended up reaching out to several different romance authors who I've read and I loved. And so now we have the first 7 titles in the series releasing this fall, and we have another 7 releasing in the spring.
So you've got, let's see, Misadventures of a City Girl, A Good Wife, The First Daughter. Is that based on anyone factual there?
No.
I don't want to think about Chelsea Clinton. No, I won't go there. And then you've got Misadventures of a Valedictorian. So these are kind of a mix of romance and humor.
Yeah, well, they're contemporary, you know, they're on the lighter side. So yeah, you know, they're fun, they're sexy, they're meant really to be fun to write and fun to read.
Yeah, and are they novel length?
They are, yes.
Okay, very cool. At what point did you start your own publishing company? What is it? Waterhouse?
Yeah, Waterhouse Press.
Let's talk a little bit about the decision to dive into that.
Well, I had originally formed the company back when we were just publishing my books. And one of the reasons was because at that time, pretty early on, it was a lot harder to form relationships with some of the, you know, more notable booksellers and, you know, ebook platforms. It was a lot harder to be taken seriously as an independent author. And so in my effort to, you know, try to seem like legitimate, like not just this little indie author that was easy to ignore, I said, well, let's give the company a title, Waterhouse Press, that, you know, maybe at least when we're submitting press releases, you know, maybe we can fool a couple people into calling us back. And
it obviously worked, huh?
Yeah, well, I think it worked more just from our sheer tenacity of, you know, knocking on doors until somebody answered. But eventually it turned out to be a good thing because, you know, once that we sold the Hacker series, you know, we were already working with, you know, Helen, and I had been, you know, helping her self-publish, and we decided to start working with her to publish her works, and, you know, the rest is history.
Yeah. And so is it all digital publishing, or are you doing paperbacks?
Oh, no. Yeah. We're stocked nationally in the brick and mortar stores, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. We've been stocked in the box stores. We're also internationally distributed. One of our authors, Audrey Carlin, she had a very popular Calendar Girl series last year, and I believe it's been published in 30 languages.
How cool is that? Boy, you really have opened a can of worms. That's a heck of a business to get into. Lot of T's to cross and I's to dot in the publishing business. It gets
more and more complex the longer we go at it.
So now that you've got all of these books and you've got the 3 series going, are you still, I know you're publishing through Waterhouse, your own company, but are you also doing anything with the traditional publishers? At this time, no. I'm definitely very focused on Waterhouse. I bet they're beating down your door, Meredith. Come on.
It's just the landscape's changed, and it's a slightly awkward situation to be in when you're an author who's self-published, traditionally published, and then also publishing other people in a, you know, somewhat traditional capacity as well. So it's, multiple personality, I guess. Exactly. Well, I think nowadays you almost have to be a hybrid. I mean, I know the big guys and gals are still hanging on to the big publishing houses and doing okay, I guess. But, by and large, I think the indie authors are really coming into their own now, especially with folks like, you and Michael Anderle and Dave Wood and folks who are starting publishing houses to help other authors going. I think there's a real movement there. And I don't think the traditional publishers are ignoring it. Do you think they see small presses like you as a threat? Well, I mean, I think they see small presses as, examples of, how a smaller, more agile company can move in the market. And, to no discredit to, the big five and their many imprints, because I mean, they're still doing amazing work, and, they're putting out amazing work and having great success. But, in certain areas, it's definitely easier for a company like Waterhouse to maneuver because we're smaller. We don't have like corporate red tape. We don't have older systems that we're trying to, modernize. So we have the flexibility to think quickly and make quick decisions that are very responsive to the market, like hour by hour, day by day, which is a lot harder for, the bigger companies.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to our old entrepreneurial days, because I can remember, like you, I was in the web design business that morphed into software. And we would regularly win contracts that the big guys just couldn't perform because they weren't that agile. They couldn't make the decisions quickly. Gosh, I worked at Boeing Aerospace for 5-6 years, and you had to have a meeting to go to the bathroom. So when you're a company like you can move a whole lot faster and get things done. If authors are you always looking for new authors? What's the process there if someone wants to talk to you about possibly co-authoring or publishing with your company?
Well, we do accept submissions. We are a small company, and we're, our philosophy is more, we want to put 150% into each brand that we publish. So, we're not looking to publish, dozens and dozens of authors and put a bunch of stuff out there into the world. We want to carefully select the people we want to work with and the kind of work we want to publish, and then, put everything we have into those series and those brands. So right now we are, we're all in on Misadventures coming out in the fall. But the cool thing about the Misadventures series is that it really doesn't have to ever end, because they're standalone stories, and it's really what we're finding, even just from like early exposure, sending out some early copies of the books to people, is that it's exposing readers to new authors, with these quick, fun stories that they've never discovered before. So we are accepting submissions on the website for these types of stories, and if we find something that resonates, then
you might have the chicken soup for the soul thing on your hands here. You might be Misadventures of everything you could possibly imagine for many years to come. Misadventures of an old guy in Alabama doing YouTube videos. That would be...
Possibilities are endless.
Oh, man, that would be a bestseller nowhere. Let's talk a little bit about, you've got a new book coming out next week. What is it?
So Misadventures of a City Girl is the first book in the Misadventures series. Here it is.
Okay.
And I co-wrote this novel with another author friend of mine, USA Today bestseller, Shel Bliss. And we actually wrote this book in 6 weeks. It was another just super fun read, and putting it together was just really fun. But it's about a Madison Atwood, who's a recent divorcee, and she goes to a quiet mountainside retreat in Northern California to kind of get away and find peace. And she ends up coming into contact with Luke Dawson, who's a very isolated mountain man. And so their lives could not be more different, city girl and mountain man, and they have to figure out how to find love in the middle ground. And
I bet they do.
Oh, they do, many times.
Oh, I love it. Many times. I love that. So that's coming out Tuesday. You've got more books coming out in the fall. And as we said, this series could go on and on and on. Your thoughts quickly on kind of the state of where things are now. Amazon seems to be in another flux. They're kind of changing the way that the page reads are paid. I have a lot of author friends who are constantly complaining about, and I'm one of them, how hard Amazon seems to be making it for the authors because they're more customer-centric, if you will. Your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, Amazon's a beast. You know, they take the majority of the market share for, I mean, pretty much any author will tell you, you know, they rely very heavily on the Amazon sales. So, yeah, and some of the new things that they're implementing are tough, you know.
I love your face.
A lot of room and a lot of options.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? There are a lot of ways to find books now, and you know, I think it's good to diversify and, you know, make sure that, you know, you're serving your readers. I've always kept my books on all the platforms. So, you know, I've never, you know, done the KU route or anything like that. So, and I think that served me well. And, you know, I have a more diverse readership for that reason.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your readers and how you stay in touch with them. I would assume that you're very, very active on social media. Are you always relating to your list? How important is that to you to make sure that those folks know that you're thinking about them?
It's always been very important to me, actually. You know, even as my brand has grown and, you know, my books have become more popular over time, it's always been a priority for me to stay accessible to my readers. I try to write back as many messages as I can, comment on as many comments as I can. And I also have a really active street team on Facebook. It's a group of like 10,000 readers who, you know, I'll get in there and post random stuff and just talk to people. So, and it's fun. And I like to have that connection with my readers and, you know, see what gets them excited. And, you know, I'm the giveaway queen too. So you're always giving something away, like books arriving at my house, which I think I still owe you for these books, by the way. Oh no, those are good.
I'm going to make my daughter pay for them because she loves them. Well, all right. So you've got the new book coming out Tuesday, more books coming out in the fall. Anything else on the horizon for you, as if you don't have enough going on?
Well, we do have some exciting news coming up with Waterhouse. Nothing that can be officially released yet, but
is this your way of coming back on?
Yeah, well,
all right. Good deal. You're in.
A few years, I'm sure I'll have some sort of interesting story to tell.
So things happening at Waterhouse, is this as far as new books, new authors? Any hint at all?
A couple new series that are coming up that we're working on right now, kind of like working on the branding and the image and the vibe. And so we're going to have some more news with that probably by the end of the month. And so, you know, I've been working heavily on that, just on the business side of things. And I also have another series that I've been trying really hard to devote time to, but I got kind of derailed with Misadventures, which was a very fun diversion. But I would like to get back to this other series. It's been nagging me for a couple years now. So,
do you see yourself ever writing anything other than romance?
Yeah, actually, you know, people have asked me that a lot over the years, and, you know, I've always been very devoted to romance, and I love reading it and I love writing it. But I can definitely lately start to see myself kind of evolving a little bit. So, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, where I could potentially go genre-wise, but I'm sure that no matter what I write, I'm going to have a romance tilt to it because that's just who I am. So
yeah, they just might not do it as many times.
Right. Yeah, it may not be quite as saucy as this book.
Awesome. Meredith Wild, it is always wonderful to talk to you. Hey, what's the weather like? Where are you at down there in Florida?
I am in Northwest Florida. So
okay, so you're okay.
We're watching and waiting. And
okay, well, I'm probably, you know, I'm North Alabama, so pack up the kids and head north.
Yeah, what's your address?
I'll text it to you.
Okay, we might be showing up.
If you don't mind 10 dogs, you're more than welcome to stay here at the Knox compound, let me tell you. Meredith Wild, if folks want to know more about you and your books, where do they need to go?
I have information on all of my available books and Misadventures at meredithwild.com. Also, you can learn more about the Misadventures series at misadventures.com.
Awesome. And we'll put all the links below, and my daughter will do a long testimonial for this video. This will be the only video of mine she watches. I mean, I've got hundreds of these damn things, and she's going to watch this one, Meredith. So again, thank you for ratcheting me up on the cool daddy scale.
Awesome.
All right, dear. Hey, we appreciate it. Do keep us posted on anything you got going on. You're always welcome here.
All right. Thanks so much for having me.